Major League Baseball trade deadline come and goes. Now we are into the season of the pennant races, and Craig Calcaterra from NBC Sports is here to join us. Of course, Craig, as we turn the calendar to August, the trade deadline is in the books, and we will start locally here in Philadelphia, where I guess the news was that they didn't make any deals. We talked last week about Hellickson, and his name was kind of out there. Were you surprised that the Phillies held on to Hellickson, knowing that all the other moves, specifically with pitching, that happened at this deadline?
A little bit. At the same time, he was a rental, right? He's going to be a free agent at the end of the season, and for as nice as a season as Hellickson has had, he's been outperforming his past track record a little bit, and I can understand a contender not thinking that the difference between staying home and going to the playoffs is Jeremy Hellickson, and that's the kind of thing that, given the return the Phillies could have expected or were probably asking for, might have been too high to ask.
With Aaron Nola, basically, you could assume that he might not pitch again this year. That was the indication Pete Makinen gave last night. Do you anticipate Hellickson being an August move now?
It's interesting. Someone's got to pitch the innings. I don't think Hellickson would clear waivers, to be honest. He's not making that much this year, and at least
$7 million
pitcher. So. Yeah, $7 million prorated for the last month and a half of the season or something. I don't think he clears waivers, so I don't think Philly could trade him to whoever they wanted anyway. My guess is he stays with the team. He's got to pitch those innings anyway. The next decision point on Hellickson is going to be do you give him a qualifying offer or not? And that's one of the more interesting questions heading into the offseason. I know it's premature, but maybe not for Phillies fans, but. That's a really tough call, to be honest, because it's a lot of money to pay Jeremy Hellickson. I think it's going to be like $17 million next year or something. But the free agent pitcher market is really, really thin, and it's not crazy to think that someone might give him a multi-year deal at some pretty decent at a pretty decent price.
Yeah, it's a weak free agent class. He might be one of the top pitchers on the market. Craig Calcaterra, NBC Sports Radio, the 24/7 live sports talk radio network. You can listen at NBCSportsRadio.com. Craig, with Nola out, Jake Thompson is going to most likely, there's been some indications that he will be the guy. You're going to see a rotation that has Eflin, Eichhoff, Velasquez, Thompson, and then you have Nola maybe next year. So does Hellickson being around indicate that maybe they would deal one of those young arms and try to get some bats this offseason? Is that something that kind of is playing up now as another storyline?
That's the problem. They don't know if Hellickson will be around next year. That's a really tough question. If Hellickson accepted a qualifying offer, for example, I think it would be pretty smart for the Phillies to at least try to shop some of the young pitching. They got a lot of it. It's hard to depend on it. Some of these guys are going to get hurt. Some of these guys are going to have Tommy John. And everyone will look at a young pitcher and think that's the most valuable thing in the world. Meanwhile, what the Phillies could really use is some offensive help, position player prospects, young guys. And if you could turn one of those pitchers, even if you don't consider them excess, even if you're one of those people who think that you can never have enough pitching, if you could turn any one of them into a quality position playing prospect, I think you have to make that deal. And maybe it's not having Hellickson around. If you don't think you're going to compete next year, there are going to be other sort of innings-eating types, like Hellickson was a year ago when the Phillies looked at him, who could fill that role next year. So I don't think it's necessarily dependent on what happens with Hellickson. I think it's just a matter of if you're willing to part with someone and what you're willing to get. It's like any other trade.
And remember, they also tried to do the same thing with Charlie Morton, who has a club option for next year. So that'll be another interesting thing. How do you view Matt Klentak so far? Half a year on the job, really, entering maybe his first full calendar year coming up here. What's the scuttlebutt on Matt Klentak, who was kind of an unknown here in the Delaware Valley? People who cover the Phillies didn't really know much about him when he got this job.
I think people generally think he's doing a good job. I mean, there wasn't a lot to work with there. I think we've talked before about who gets the credit for the beginning the rebuild and unloading the veterans last year. Was it the old GM? Was it McPhail? Was it someone else? We don't know. But I think Klentak has done a really good job of turning this around, getting young arms. That's always the first thing you got to do when you do a rebuild. He's handled the Ryan Howard situation, such as it is, the way I think you have to handle it. He's let his manager manage. I don't think anyone has any complaints about what he's done.
Let's look around the league here a little bit and see what happened and what it means moving forward with Craig Calcaterra. What's going to happen with Yasiel Puig?
I think he's going to stay in Oklahoma City for the rest of the month until the minor league season is done. I think if he's hitting really well, the Dodgers will still try to trade him in August on a waiver deal, or call him up when the 40-man roster opens up in September. Use him as depth as the Dodgers look for the playoffs. But I really do think that the organization in trading for Josh Reddick and saying that their playoff push is better without Yasiel Puig than with it, they're turning the page on him. And the idea now is let's rebuild some of his value, show that he could be healthy, show that he could still be a hitter, and try to get something for him. But at this point, they were willing to deal with him when he was crazy a couple of years ago. He's definitely been on much better behavior in the last year or so. But the baseball playing isn't there. That's ultimately what really decides it, is whether or not he can be a talent that can transform the game for them. Is he going to be worth that hassle? And so far, he's not showing that he's worth it. So this is like any other deal. Rebuild his value, see what you can get for him.
Can they make the playoffs without Kershaw?
Well, it's funny. Their record has been better without Kershaw than with it. They definitely went on a surge. Now the Giants fell back too. That is purely coincidence. Of course, you always would prefer to have Clayton Kershaw, but at the same time Kershaw went away, they've been starting to get pitching back online. Some of their younger pitchers have been stepping up a little bit. They've got Brandon McCarthy back. They're going to get Brett Anderson back. Some of their offensive players are doing a little bit better. So a lot of good things improved. It's probably the testament to the fact that baseball is not basketball, is not football. You can lose any one baseball player and still do just fine. I think they definitely can make some noise without Kershaw. He still can only pitch 1 out of every 5 games, and if you win 3 of the others, you're doing pretty well.
Yeah, a lot of news as the baseball's trade deadline has just passed. We see the Mets make the move for Bruce, and then they got to put Cespedes on the DL here. So did the Mets better themselves with the Bruce move?
I think they better themselves in the short term, but it's more of a plugging a hole thing than truly improving themselves. The Cespedes thing is really annoying because he's been hurt for several weeks now. That quad has been a problem. They probably could have put him on the disabled list around the time of the All-Star break, given him a few days off, not had him miss as much time. And now, they let him go as a half a player for a long time, and now they got to do it. That's just the problem. Having Lucas Duda gone, having Cespedes be, not at 100%. Bruce has got a lot of home runs and he's got a lot of RBIs. Those are inflated quite a bit, though, by having Joey Votto batting in front of him in Cincinnati. I don't think he's going to move the needle very much for New York, and ultimately I think the injuries are going to be too much for them.
All right, Craig Calcaterra is with us, taking a look at just a couple more things as this baseball season has some interesting pennant races down the stretch they come. By the way, that the Phillies this afternoon, they're taking on the Giants, looking to sweep the Giants, who are in first place down there in the West. And we just talked about the Dodgers. Can the Giants hold on there as well? They haven't been playing very well.
They've been playing pretty poorly for about a month now. Really surprising too, because they're on paper anyway. Probably maybe not the Cubs, but they're one of the deepest teams, top to bottom, in the National League, and it's definitely been interesting to see them struggle. I mean, a lot of it has been the bullpen. A lot of it has been, the back end of the rotation has been kind of a disaster. They've been trying to cobble together Matt Cain, Jake Peavy, Jeff Samardzija. They just put Peavy in the bullpen, for crying out loud. That game last night was just a textbook example of what's been happening to the Giants. They've been basically seizing feet from the jaws of victory over and over again, and defensive miscues, bullpen problems, that stuff will kill you.
Sure will, and we saw it. They had a 4-0 lead against the Phillies last night. The night before, they were down 6-0, came back, and then ended up losing that game to the Phillies. And, it's not like the Phillies have a big offense, although I guess the addition of Aaron Altherr has really added a little spark and a little life to this team, offensively at least.
It's kind of funny, although he's most remembered outside of Philly for what he did last night with, what we could call that Altera's boner or something like that. I don't know if we're going to settle on that. Can we even say that now on the radio? I guess we can. If they said it in 1908, we could say it now. But
has that been ruled officially a hit?
Fined, right?
Did they officially rule that a hit?
Yeah, they changed it. No, they changed it to a fielder's choice. So he basically took away an RBI from.
I know Elias was going back and forth on this one. They originally was a hit, then it was a fielder's choice.
They might have changed it back.
Yeah, I don't know where it is. I don't know where it stands right now.
When I went to bed last night, when I went to bed last night, it was a fielder's choice, and I figured that they're going to now fine Altera in the kangaroo court there for taking an RBI away from Franco.
All right, Craig Calcaterra here on the Sports Bash 97.3 ESPN, and you can listen to Craig on NBC Sports Radio, the 24/7 live sports radio, and download the app over at NBC Sports Radio mobile app. Today, Craig Calcaterra talking baseball here on the Bash. Thanks, Craig.
Thank you.